You're listening to Business Stories with Ryan Arcaracci, where I speak to business professionals from all walks of life. Thanks for listening, and let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Today is going to be an interesting conversation. We're going to talk about something that's not entirely exciting, but something that you may want to learn more about. My guest today is Don Preston. He's a home appraiser. He's also a client of mine, and we've really gotten together and come up with ideas for technology and all the things he's doing with that. But let's dive into home appraising. Don, thank you for being here. Let's talk about your background. I know you're a tech guy, and you've moved from being a tech guy into this home appraisal business. So talk to us a little bit about your background and how that happened.
Hey, I've been tech ever since I was a kid, basically. But so growing up in the tech industry, bought and sold several companies as I came out of the world. I bought and sold some companies, product management. And then as I kind of retired from the companies, they just take a lot of work. And so my wife made me promise not to do another company. So here I am starting another one, just one that she approves this time. So
oh, good. That's important. Yeah.
But I just tech is what I am. Appraisals is something I got into by accident. A good friend of mine, as I'm retired, trying to figure out what to do, and he says, "Hey, I need help doing some work. Do you want to help me?" And my website and all this other stuff isn't working. My phone systems aren't working. How can you help me out? And as I helped him out, I started helping him with the appraisal side, and I just went ahead and got my appraisal and license, and then went from there. And now I'm doing appraisals. I figure it's something I can do until I stop walking.
Yeah. Well, you have to walk to do appraisals, I'm sure. So like a lot of people, especially me, like I have a very surface basic level of home appraisals, but explain to people listening why you need an appraisal, what it is, and what it actually does for you.
So appraisals are a little bit different than what most people think of. So whenever you buy a house and you go to a lender, the lender wants an appraisal to basically validate that the price that you're paying for, that the house is worth the price that you're paying for. Right. And so an appraisal is done for that. Now, in that case, that lender will hire an appraiser or go to what they call an AMC or appraisal management company and say, "Hey, do you have an appraiser that can do this property and qualified for this kind of property?" Right. And then you pay for that in your closing costs.
Right.
Then there are other appraisers that people really don't understand or don't know. But let's say, for example, in the state of Texas, our property taxes are based off of the value of our houses.
Right.
And those go up and down and people complain about it. But if you want to go to the appraisal district and say, "Hey, I'm paying too much," well, what you've got to do is you've got to get an appraisal that basically says, "Hey, here's the real value of my house, not what you think it is." And so you would hire an appraisal. Another purpose for the appraisals I do is what we call general purpose appraisals, not the financing. If you're doing a HELOC or closing in some sort of financing on your house, I don't do those. I stay away from those on purpose. And one of the things that people don't realize is that an appraiser is bound by that value that they gave you for the life of the mortgage. Mm-hmm. And so, if you got a 30-year mortgage, they're bound for that. And if the market goes haywire, all of a sudden, the lender can come back and say, "Why did you guys give it that value?" Well, I don't want to get caught up in that liability, so I just don't do those.
Right.
And plus, like I said, I'm retired, so I don't have to do it.
Right.
But the other things that people don't think about are divorces. How do you split the house equitably, right? Or if one spouse wants to stay in and buy out the other, how do you go about doing it? What's the true value? Another case might be an estate where a family member has died, their estate's left over. What's that value of the house, and how does it get split equally among the family members? And you would think family is all easy and good and stuff like that, but I've seen people spend $10,000 trying to save $1,000 in some of these estate settlements. But so you go get an appraisal based on the date of death and what that value is, and then that's where it is, right? Because someone can turn around and hold on to the property for a year and then say, okay, now we need to sell it, and this is the value, and this is how we split it. Well, if it went way up, all those other family members just got hosed. So
Yeah.
if you do it based on the date of death, right? Then you got your PMI reduction. If you want to get rid of your mortgage insurance, you would do it there. So there's cases like that, and even immigration. A lot of immigrants have to prove that they have X amount of value in the country to keep their status, and so they use their house as collateral, and so you got to get an appraisal for that as well, right? So
wow, I didn't even know that was required. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
That was a nuanced one I hadn't heard about until I got into the industry. What?
Yeah.
So
wow. Yeah. So like walk us through the process, especially working with you. Obviously people can go, to your website, they can book an appraisal. You're based in, is it like the Dallas area? I know you're in Texas, right?
Yeah, Dallas-Fort Worth area, the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. Yes, sir.
So how does that process work? And typically what happens when someone books you, you come out, and how does that all happen?
So typically what will happen is we'll agree, first off, what's the purpose of the appraisal, right? And am I qualified? So I'll have a conversation with them. Am I qualified to be doing the appraisal on that house? There's certain properties that I don't do. Like if they're multi-million-dollar houses, I don't do those. I'm just, I'm not qualified yet to really do that, and I don't really want to do those.
Right.
But if, let's say it's a manufactured house on 10 acres of land, I can do those, but do I really want to? Because you got to go out and see all your comps, and the other comp might be 50 miles away, and so you'll drive 300 miles just taking pictures of your comparables.
Yeah.
But what they'll do is you verify that the property is a good property, that you're qualified to do it, and then you schedule, and then you basically show up. You take pictures of the outside, you measure the outside, because what a lot of people don't realize is that the square footage of your house is based on the outside perimeter of your house, not wall to wall, inside wall, right?
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter. It's based on the outside, because how do you know whether that brick is 2 feet thick or if it's a quarter of an inch thick, right?
Right.
So it's what they call ANSI standard. You measure on the outside of the house, and then you go see if there's anything unique about the house. What's the condition of the house? What's the quality of the house? And then take pictures all around it, and then you go inside and you do the same thing. Hey, do you have water, electricity, gas? Is your HVA system? You look up in the attic. You're not doing a home inspection. You're not double checking, right? So home inspectors, they look what's behind the walls. I look at the walls, right? And if I walk around and I see that there's an HVAC unit or an air conditioning unit outside, and it's wintertime, my assumption is that that's working and they've got HVAC. They have to tell me otherwise if it's not. But a home inspector would catch whether that's working or not. I don't see whether there's termites in the wall or not, right? I assume that everything behind the wall is good. And so, there's legalese in my contract that basically says, hey, I've looked at it. I recommend, but do not require a home inspector. But you just look at it and then you take pictures, and then you see the quality and the condition, and that's the value of that property. You do. It's an opinion of value, right? It's not an absolute value. And what a lot of people think is what it sells for and what its value is are usually different. They can be different, right? Because you can hold on to a property for a year to get the price you want, or if you want to sell it in one day, that's going to be a different price as well too. So it's all dependent on market timing and stuff. We assume that you're going to sell it in a normal, unstressed situation, and that's the value we put on it.
How long does so once you do an appraisal, how long is that value valid for? Are we talking like 6 months or a year or?
No. Typically, it's good for that day. Okay, but most people will look at it for about 3 months. And in the DFW market, 3 months is a long time. Values change a lot in 3 months right now because it's just a hot market, right? If the market is kind of a stagnant, they'll be a little more tolerant. But when it's a dynamic market like the DFW area right now, 3 months is pushing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's segue a little bit into the technology side, because you and I have been working together, and we're both tech nerds. So we started working with ClientTether, and I think has it been a year? I can't remember. I think it's been at least 6 months or more. Talk to us, like, we're a system designed for home service professionals, people that do home service work, but also people that can do what you do on the appraisal side. What's your experience been like with it? How have you seen it help you in general?
Yeah. So most people that are appraisers are independent.
Yeah.
Kind of like home inspectors, the same thing, right? We're our own company, and so our biggest problem is that the more appraisals we do, the less we are able to handle the incoming marketing, sales, and lead generation, right? So
Right.
the problem I needed to solve was, how do I handle incoming leads? If I do a really good job on my website and all my SEO and, my lead generation programs, I might go to Angie's or Angie's or Craft Jack or Thumbtack,
Yeah.
one of those, right? And buy leads from them. But if I'm out on a site, how do I answer those phone calls? How do I sit there and get information to the people and respond fast enough that they want to pick me over the other person that are going to call in 15, 20 minutes, right?
Right.
And as interest rates were going up, appraisers were losing the financing contracts, right?
Right.
So they're all trying to jump into what I'm trying to do, even though they're not really ready to on their website. So they're buying these leads. So I've got to respond faster than they do.
Right.
And I've got to respond with some sort of knowledgeable but personable responses, right? And that's where ClientTether came in. You can go out there and you can try and put all the little systems and piece part them together, between, was it Chimp? I forgot what that, I'm going brain dead on the thing, but MailChimp, and then, Pipedrive, and, do some Zapier links between those and stuff like that. But that's a lot of work.
Right.
And getting that together. And what I needed was a platform where I could basically get a lead. It would automatically see the lead. It would automatically text, which to me is important, text and email the lead saying, hey, here's who I am. Here's how much I cost. And feel free to give me a call and ask any questions, right?
Yeah.
And that's what ClientTether is doing for me. And then it gathers it and puts it in place, and then tracks it through my, basically as a CRM, tracks it through the process.
Yep.
And as I go through the different processes, from, hey, I've got you scheduled, to, hey, I just finished the inspection, to, hey, I'm writing your report now. It goes out. All I do is do a drag and drop, and then it texts and emails out information to them so that they know I'm not forgetting about them, right? Because an appraisal can take up to, depending on the information, and usually I try and get it done in 2 or 3 days, but some people think you can give it to them as soon as you walk away from the house, and that's not the case. It's a lot of research, right?
Right.
In some research, if it's in a bad house, it might take me a week or two to find the cost of fixing things.
Yeah.
And so if you don't respond and talk to them during that time, they're going to think you don't care, and they're going to get frustrated.
Right.
And you're just going to lose a good review rating.
Yeah.
So what ClientTether does, I talk through this process. Okay, here's what's happening. Here's what's going on now. Here's what's going to take. Please be patient with me. And here you go, right?
Yeah.
And I go through that process, and ClientTether tells them what's going on so that they know. And now the downside to that is they're responding like they think I'm really sending them something. And now I got emails. I'm like, I've got to handle these emails, right?
Right.
I need to figure out how to handle that, right? Or hey, just check off. I don't need to pay attention to that, right? So,
right.
Or if they got a question in there, but that's a problem to have, right? That's a good problem,
right?
If you're interacting with your customers and they're responding back, that tells you that you're doing it personally, right? And they think they're talking to you, not a system process, which is what I like about ClientTether, because I can kind of customize it around my personality.
Right. Right. Do you have any particular examples of ways or I guess situations where it worked really well for you, or you just saw some really good results, or maybe some feedback from a customer or client who said, "Hey, Don, this communication was good. I'm really happy with how this went."
Well, even if you look at my reviews, right?
Yeah,
I got all 5-star reviews. When you start these businesses, usually you go to some of your friends and you try and get some reviews at first, right?
yeah,
And you try and get 4 or 5 reviews from friends. I try not to go more than that because then it starts looking bad. But you're just trying to get some in there to get some business. Well, I had one good friend of mine. He gave me a 4-star review, even.
yeah.
But all my clients and all my other friends all gave me 5. So I've got one review out of about 30 or 40 that's not a 5-star, right? And
So
that's attributed to
he's no longer a friend now. I'm just kidding.
he's a friend. I just give him hell about that, right?
Yeah,
Every time. Oh, my
yeah,
only 4-star review. Well, I never gave him a 5 stars. Well, yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were
But
saying.
yeah, so the reviews I'm getting are all talking about how well I communicate with them and kept them updated on what's going on, right?
Right.
One of the hardest things in this industry and in what I call the home service industry altogether is you might put out a lead for, let's say you want paint job, right?
Yeah.
And you put out a lead for 5 painters. If you get 2 to call you back, you're lucky.
Yep.
And then out of those 2, one might respond. So now you feel like you're stuck with taking the only painter that responded.
Right.
And then if they don't respond and talk to you and keep you updated, then you just frustrated. And most people, at least in this area, that's really common. I mean,
Yeah.
people, you might not hear from your painter for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden they show up, and you're like, well, how was I supposed to know you're going to be here today?
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
they just kind of do their own thing, and I get it. They're busy. They work hard. They don't have time to do all the back office systems, and that's where ClientTether comes in, right?
Right.
It handles that stuff so that you can be a painter or I can be an appraiser.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the issue that a lot of people are experiencing. And it's like you guys in home services work so hard, and handling the leads is another layer of your work. And that's why people, if they can afford it, hire an admin or an assistant to help with that. But a lot of people can't. And if you're on a job for 3, 4, 5 hours a day, and leads are coming in, you're missing out on that business because you're just not able to respond. And it's not your fault. It's the fact that you're just doing your job. So that's a problem though. And I think you're right, Don. That's where the gap is filled with us. So
Yeah. So one of the issues I had before I got ClientTether was I'm getting leads. Now, obviously when you start something new, you're trying to get your leads like your Andes and Craft Jack and Thumbtack, right? You're paying for these things and they're not cheap. They really are not cheap,
right.
but you're paying for it whether you do anything with it or not, right?
Yeah.
And so you might be out there on a job and I couldn't respond to, the phone call because I don't want to take it in front of my client while I'm working with my client. And then an hour later, I call them back and they're like, I already had 3 other people respond. I'm picking this one. Well, you missed it and you just paid, anywhere, from like with Angie's, you're probably paying $40 to $60 for that lead.
Right.
And you just missed it just
Yeah.
because you couldn't take that call.
Yep.
And then what ClientTether did was I couldn't necessarily take the call, but I texted, which is the important part for me right now, right? Hey, this is Don Press Home Appraisal Solutions. Check your email. It will tell you more about what I'm at. I'm on site right now, but check your email and you'll see what my costs are, where I'm at. And, now I'm getting the ability for it to go in and say, hey, go to my site and you can chat and ask all the questions you want. Or you can do an online schedule and whatever, and see what's open and schedule
Yeah.
at your convenience, right? And
Yeah.
so, and that's me not even being involved. I can keep doing what I'm doing. And my closing right now, is it as good as me in person being there and answering a phone call? No, right? There's nothing going to replace a human, but I
Right.
can't afford to have a full-time employee right now. I'd rather pay my ClientTether fee and then instead of paying a full-time employee, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper to pay ClientTether. But what happened is even then, it might be, let's say, 1 in 5, getting 1 in 5 Angie's leads. Now it's more like 1 in 3.
Yeah.
So it dropped my dropped my cost
Yeah.
per lead.
Right. So, and it's interesting you say that too. I think it comes down to customer experience and and a lot of people in home services don't realize, or they don't think about what the customer wants to experience, and how they should feel, and especially with home appraisals, if it's like a divorce situation or an estate situation where someone's passed away, it's a stressful time anyway, right? So these people are already under pressure. They're stressed out, especially if it's like a divorce. So how you communicate with them and how quickly you communicate and how quickly you get them their answers is key, because they're already in a heightened emotional state. Would you say that's pretty accurate, Don?
Yeah, you definitely got to talk to them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I come to people and say, guys, you don't need an appraisal right now.
Yeah.
You don't need it right now. Go do this instead. Right. Or, hey, go talk to your lawyer in a divorce. See if you can get an amicable divorce. Don't call me until it's a really nasty divorce, right? And then it's going to get lawyers involved. Then you can call me, right?
Right.
But if you work with your client, you're not here to try and make money at all costs. You're there to try and solve a problem.
Right.
And and my job happens to be a funky, product, but it's something that's required, right? And so that's when I come involved. But if I would rather turn someone down than have them buy some of my service that they really don't need, or something I can say, hey, just go ask a real estate agent. You don't need an appraisal. You need a market analysis, and a real estate agent will do that for you for free.
Right. Yeah. One new thing I want to ask you about, because so recently we adopted the artificial intelligence chatbot, which we offer through the system, which honestly, I think you're like the first person that's done it. So you're kind of the new cowboy out there with the new frontier of this artificial intelligence stuff. Talk to us a little bit about like how that's going for you, how you're using it, how effective it is. What do you think about it so far?
Yeah, I'm definitely into it. It's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But it's like any new employee, right? You got to train them.
Yeah.
And that's where, everyone thinks that if you just tell it, hey, here's my product, answer responses, you're going to get junk responses back to your customers. I mean, it knows everything, so it doesn't know how to answer it to you, right? And plus, there's no personality to it.
Yeah.
Well, when you hire an employee, there's a certain character of employee you want. There's a certain knowledge way you want them talking. And, talk professionally, but keep it short, or talk, real informal and have fun.
Yeah.
What's that personality you want? Right. And you hire people based on that, but you don't even realize it. Right. Well, chat, you've got to do that same thing. You got to teach it how to do it. Right. So, I'm still working on the process. I'm still training my micro employees, what I call them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like anyone else, right? But the difference is that I get to do it on my schedule, not have to be here between 8 and 5 in the morning to figure it out and work with them, right? I can do it on my schedule. I can be, I was training it last night at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Trying to. It's a little wordy for me right now. It's not my personality.
Yeah.
And so I was going in and doing some prompting on it to try and get it to back off some of the formal responses it's giving, right?
Right.
But it is so much better, right? People can go to my website and, hey, do you cover DFW? Yeah, I cover DFW, blah, blah, blah. Do you cover this town? Yes, I do. And well, how much does it cost? They can carry on a conversation in their personality, and it responds in my personality.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you want. People feel like it, right? And you just got to train it so it doesn't look like a chat bot.
Yeah.
But that takes a little bit of work, but so's hiring an employee and training them correctly. The difference is that mine's not going to quit in 2 weeks.
Right. Well, hopefully not.
Well, yeah, you guys aren't quitting in 2 weeks, are you?
No, I mean, sometimes these bots, I'm just making a joke because sometimes they take a mind of their own, so,
Yes, yeah, they do.
um,
Yeah.
but ours doesn't, but it's just funny to think about that. But, um, yeah, I think what's interesting about it is that once you set it, I mean, obviously you're still in that mode where you're kind of training it and you're kind of honing it in. And that takes maybe your first 2, 3 months to really nail that down. But what's cool about it is this thing's working 24/7. It's on your website. So if someone's inquiring at 5 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 12 midnight, whatever it is, that bot's going to be there to respond. An employee's not going to do that. An employee's going to
Correct.
work a limited hours. They're going to say, I'm going to work this many hours. You're going to say yes. And they're not going to work holidays. They're not going to work when they're sick. But the bot is. So that's, I think, a tremendous advantage is that it's always there to be sort of your assistant through the process. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. There's people that hire assistants, those 24-hour assistants, but they're expensive, but you're always training them on how to answer because
Right.
they go by scripts, right? Well,
Right.
a chat bot's better at scripts than humans are,
Yeah.
right? So, might as well train your chat bot and you'll have a lot better response and 24/7 and it's cheaper.
Right. Right. Not that we're advocating people get rid of their, fire people. I don't want the message to be that out there. I think in certain situations, the bot is really applicable. People like you who don't necessarily want to hire someone full time or part time to do this kind of stuff. This bot works for you and it's affordable.
Yeah. The job is that people are going out there and trying to replace people with bots. They're going to fail, right?
Yeah.
The idea is to have a bot make someone more efficient.
Right.
And what it's doing is it's making me more efficient before I have to hire someone. Now, there's still going to be a point where if I start getting X amount of business, I've got to go hire an employee.
Yeah.
Now, it may be another appraiser. It may not be an admin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it might be someone that their job is to sit there and manage all my back office systems,
Right.
my QuickBooks and all that, right? But again, it's not there to replace people. It's to make existing people more efficient until
Right.
they get to a point. Nothing's going to beat the human interaction.
Right. Because people want that. People want to interact with people. I mean, if any of us have called customer service and talked to a bot on the phone, it's super annoying. And you get pretty teed off when you have to deal with those. And I know because I've experienced it myself. And I just want a live human every time I call. I'm like, give me a live human being to talk to so I can solve my problem here.
Yeah, my last executive job was handling that, basically trying to solve that problem, that exact problem in the medical industry, right? You call a doctor and you get a recording that basically says, hey, thank you for calling so-and-so, but it takes them 45 seconds to get to a point where you can press 1 to talk to a nurse, right? If you're trying to schedule. And that's just asinine, right? And that's because they put these robotic systems in place. My job was for a major healthcare provider trying to figure out how to solve that and basically put this kind of a solution in place where people can just say, hey, I need to do a recording and schedule an appointment, and they're in within 5 or 10 seconds, not 45 seconds where they get the option, right?
Right. Yeah. There's sometimes when and I think as customers, like we dread having, like if I have to call like my insurance company or a medical provider, like I just dread like, how long am I going to be on hold? How much time out of my day is this going to take? So, but what's cool about with the chatbot, it's like, the answer's right there. It's right there and it pre-qualifies the lead for you. You can go in, look at the chat and say, hey, John, I noticed you talked to the bot. These are the questions. I want to elaborate on what you asked and give you some more information. So it's another layer of improved customer service. I think that's what it is, right? Right, Don, would you agree with that?
Yeah. It's definitely improved customer service, but what it also gives you the ability to do is see how your customers are asking your questions, right? That matter to them. And you can start seeing trends in how they're responding to you or questions. So you can change your bot to handle it accordingly, adjust, right? So if they start asking a whole lot about, hey, how do I schedule an appointment? And then they come back, well, that didn't work, or you've got something wrong, you got to go fix it. Or there could be something more efficient and you can go fix it, right? But you can see what your clients are thinking at 3 o'clock in the morning when they were texting your chat bot.
Right. Right. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, it might not be so good. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
It's answering better than I am.
Yeah. Better than you are at 3 in the morning. Yeah. 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 So this has been good, Don. I really appreciate you coming on. So if people are listening to this, they're in your area and they want to look at getting an appraisal done or just ask you more questions about it, how do they best reach you?
Best way, just go to homeappraisalsolutions.com.
Yeah.
And if you want to test the chatbot, feel free to test the chatbot. Feel free to call me, text. If you just got questions on appraisals, whether you need one or not, just call me and ask, or feel free to try the chatbot. It should be able to answer almost everything you want
Yeah.
right now, right? But if
Yeah.
you just want to talk about even the technology of this, just give me a call or text me, and I'll respond and be more than happy to help you out.
How do they access the bot on your website? Is it I know it's like a button, but where is it so they know where to go?
I believe it's down in the bottom right. There's
Okay.
actually several places where it says just chat
Yeah.
in there, right? And so if you go anywhere on the site, you'll see a button on there somewhere, depending on which page you land on.
Yep.
If you go to the divorce page, I believe it's up in the top right, and I think if you're going into the FAQ page, I think it's down in the bottom left, right? So
Yeah.
Don't know exactly where, but you'll see it. It's real easy. I make it prominent on every page. Same with the booking. If booking an appraisal, I make it prominent on every page.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Don. If you're listening to this and anybody out there, if you're in the Dallas area and you're looking for a home appraisal guy, Don Preston is your guy with Home Appraisal Solutions. Don, thanks again. Have a great holiday. Keep in touch.
Thanks, Ryan. You take care and have a good holiday.
You too.
Hey, this is Ryan. Are you in the market for a customer relationship management system for your business? Well, before you drop a dime, pick up my book, Customer Relationship Management Exposed, now available on Amazon. Just search Customer Relationship Management Exposed and my name, RyanArcoraci. This is your definitive guide to saving money before purchasing a CRM, so pick it up today.